Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Currency Podcast and Twitch stream. This is episode 104. I'm glad that you arrived. I'm glad that you're listening. This podcast is relatively more realistic than it used to be because now it's complete with ads at the beginning of every episode. That always enhances the experience for the listener, is ads. I mean, in some senses it might because now you realize that I'm trying. Uh, harder than I'm trying harder than I've ever tried before. Now I'm just try now I'm just a try hard. Now I'm actually going for it. I have ads, and so that'll make me money over time if given enough time. But uh, YouTube isn't allowing me to make any money. They are just making it more and more restrictive for any content creator to make money. Uh, for whatever reason, they just get worse and worse and give people more strikes on content as time goes on. And I'll explain that in a minute. Actually, that applies to me. That's a real life story. I've had to suffer the difficulties of YouTube policies in recent days. That's the story that I'm explaining to you. But I've moved ahead in my career. I'm actually not going to make you guys watch every single shot of mine on the Corn Ferry Tour. I'm going to zoom ahead to make it more interesting. Like by the time I get to the last event, which you see the schedule of the Corn Ferry Tour on your screen right now, when I get to the last event, I think I have to be in some threshold, like the top 25 of the standings for the whole season, to make it to the PGA Tour. But I am trying to think of ways that the watching it is even more compelling than that. But I've moved ahead to the fourth event, and I'm in the last 9 holes of the last round of this event, and I'm leading because I was like paying attention to every shot. So I'm leading this tournament. I have 9 holes that I'm going to cover in this episode, trying to win this tournament in my career mode so that I can make it to the PGA Tour. I should raise the stakes, like provisionally. I'll say that the stakes are I have to win a major on the PGA Tour before I can buy Tiger Woods PGA Tour 2K23 and then use that for my content because that's a revamped game. There's probably better ways to make content on there. And that's what I get to graduate to if I win a major on the PGA Tour in this career mode. Those are the stakes. Because is it compelling enough on its own? Maybe not. Maybe not that you would be that interested in my career mode on this. Interested to watch other people play career mode. But I wanted to express to you today, this is Saturday, October 1st, and I'm already done watching Wisconsin lose 34-10 to Illinois and get 2 rushing yards during the entire game. And just so you know, my headset will probably turn off because I've had some problems with it. It's turning off on its own while I do this. So if you're watching the video stream, the sound will pause. And just so you know, during those pauses, I will also pause what I'm talking about. You're not going to miss anything. Pause what I'm talking about so I can turn the headset back on. It's just a screwy thing that's happening. I probably have to get a new headset, but they start me off thinking that I want a 3-wood, and I'll comment on my golf here on the video portion of it. This is a tough shot. So this is a real-life golf course that I'm playing. It's famous, and it's in Nova Scotia in Canada. I haven't really heard of it. Maybe it's just Corn Ferry Tour famous, but it is a real course. Like all the courses on this video game are real courses. The people aren't real, or at least when you make a career mode character, they aren't. Like my career character is named Barge Mistletoe, and he wears sunglasses on Sundays. I guess just for the theme. This is a Sunday, you wear sunglasses. I guess that's what he has in his head. I don't know. He's a pro though. Like I would trust my life to Barge Mistletoe. I trust my family's lives. I'm probably gonna name my first daughter or son Barge after the career character that I created in PGA Tour 2K21, Barge Mistletoe. Um, he's my inspiration. He's a lot of our inspirations. He's an inspiration for so many. He's touched so many lives with his work ethic and with his decor. Um, I'll try to make it through an episode without bashing Christianity in some way. I know that it ends up getting in that direction. I don't really know why. I can't control for these things. But I mean, I can. Like, I'm the sole producer and editor and like creator of this podcast. But so like, I mean, if you think about it, it's completely me that's controlling for that. If you want to think of it that way, I mean, it's not like, it's completely my choice to talk about Christianity in sometimes negative ways, frequently, but like, I'm not trying to, just ends up that way because, um, I don't really know why. But today I will not be bashing Christianity. I will be bashing the Wisconsin Badgers. But I just wanted to talk about the state of Wisconsin Badger football today. And I would say that there's a number of ways you could react to the way that Wisconsin Badger football looks right now. And in case you don't know me or not from Wisconsin or anything, I'm a lifelong Wisconsin Badgers fan, and they were playing college football today, the Badgers, and they got dominated by a team that they usually beat, but worse than that, by a team that they're expected to beat. And coming into the game, we were already starting to ask questions about the head coach, whether or not he should be fired. This, to me, is complete confirmation that we need to fire Paul Chryst. Um, we do need to get rid of him. I've been roasting the Badgers and Paul Chryst on Twitter all day, which don't take that lightly because I'm not usually on Twitter. Like, um, this was a like wacky, rash, is an insane outburst of tweets that I made, like, only because I'm acting irrationally, like sporadically. I can't control my emotions in during this time because the Badgers are so shitty. It's hard to comprehend. It's hard to think about. Like, I'm a lifelong Wisconsin Badgers football. And there it goes. And now we're connected. Um, but basically, I've never seen the Badgers look this bad. I would say that this is the death of modern day Wisconsin football. This is the death of the modern Wisconsin football program. Is this game today, is this date in history. And by that I mean they have been the modern day Badgers since Barry Alvarez arrived in like 1990, maybe 89, some one of those, somewhere around there, definitely. Barry Alvarez arrived. He completely revamped the Wisconsin Badgers football program. He won them three Rose Bowls in, I believe the years are 94, 99, and 2000. He won those three Rose Bowls. It was success on nothing near what Wisconsin football had ever seen up to that point. And then in the 20 years since the year 2000, the Badgers have been good. They've been on like a similar plane of success, and expectations of their success were similar to that. They've actually been to four Rose Bowls in the 20 years since the year 2000. They just happen to have lost every one of them, probably because their head coach, Paul Chryst, was involved in all four of those Rose Bowls that they've lost in the 20 years prior to the year 2000, where it's like in 2000, you had a Wisconsin football team that used to win Rose Bowls, but ever since Barry Alvarez stopped being the head coach, they've been a team that loses Rose Bowls. It's kind of like the negative Barry Alvarez Wisconsin football program has shown itself in the last 20 years, where they lose Rose Bowls. Like, it's the shadow um, Barry Alvarez program that loses Rose Bowls as opposed to winning them. Like maybe you could look at that. Maybe we should have seen their lost Rose Bowls as a sign that we're already in the negative. We're like Wisconsin already peaked or something. We're already on the negative side of it, but it reached a dead end today. But it's like since the year 1990 when Barry Alvarez arrived and was continually making the program better. Um, this is the worst that they've been since then, arguably. But I would argue you need to look at what's happening on the screen, what's happening with this offense, and understand that this is definitely the most dead that they've been. This is the least excited that you could be as a Badgers football fan in 30 years. Like that's where you should be. You should not be excited about this team or about the product on the field. But so I'm here just to. Well, I have to get through 9 holes, and I got to win this tournament. I mean, I don't have to win. I don't know that I will win. Look, I don't know that I will win. Okay, break. But I would like to make a par here. It's not an easy par, but I made it. But anyways, like Wisconsin played Ohio State last week and they got blown out. In fact, it looked like they didn't even arrive or they didn't even show up. They just got there and then they laid down on the field. They were playing Ohio State in Ohio State. And I was willing to overlook that for the sake of the modern day Badgers. I was not yet willing to admit that the Badgers were dead in the water as a program after getting obliterated by Ohio State. Ohio State was up 31-7 at half, and it should have been a lot worse. Basically, as I interpreted it, Ohio State was only up 31-7 because they were being nice or something. Like I know that Ohio State isn't ever at being nice or like that's what you're supposed to think about them. I think that they just saw the pathetic state of what Wisconsin has on the field, and they were like, "Oh, sorry." Like they have respect for who we are in years past enough to not be up 45-7 at half, but they really could have done whatever that they wanted to Wisconsin football last week. So I wasn't willing to say Wisconsin is dead for sure after they got blown out by Ohio State, even though the Wisconsin football team I've watched my whole life has generally, I mean, most of the time they're able to compete with Ohio State. They have beaten them a few times that I've seen. I think I've seen them beat them 3 times in my life. All of them were 2011 and prior to that. That's because the Ohio State football that's happened the last decade is they've probably improved over the last decade more so than any Big Ten team has ever improved over any decade during the history of the Big Ten or the history of all of the teams in the Big Ten. Probably no team has ever improved as much as Ohio State football has improved over the last decade. And they were already number one in the conference before that happened. What I'm saying is, being a super team in college football, a lot of doors have opened up in that area over the last decade, so that it's like the teams that are at the very top of college football are so separated from the shittier teams. It's just that like Ohio State's offense is so powerful now, and it never used to be that way. Like 2000 to 2010, Ohio State was better than Wisconsin, but they didn't have this amazing offense. Ohio State still ran the ball, but things have changed in college football, and okay, 167 yard carry, 169. I'm gonna hit this one. I really am. I'm gonna give this one a ride. Get there, big mama. Land on the green. Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that every day, all day, half the time, every day. But I'm just talking about how Ohio State football has improved a shit ton over the last decade, and Wisconsin is kind of the same Wisconsin that they've been. They haven't done anything to answer to this like unnatural rate of growth that has happened in Ohio State and really like happened with Michigan and Penn State too over the last decade. Like the amount of money that's poured into the Big Ten over the last decade is a lot more than they used to have because it took them a while to monetize as like a union across all Big Ten teams with the Big Ten network. So what I'm talking about is that with the arrival of the Big Ten network, it opened doors for money to be pouring into the Big Ten a lot more, and that money has really helped. Like Ohio State, for whatever reason, has really benefited from that, and it's a number of factors. Like Urban Meyer moved Ohio State to a higher higher plane than for what they had seen before that, before Urban Meyer arrived. Like Urban Meyer really put Ohio State on the map in the last decade. Wisconsin hasn't done anything as a program to answer that. They've just been like, we're going to run the ball the way that offense used to just guarantee you success in college football if you could run the ball. And it's not like that anymore. And Wisconsin hasn't done anything to change it so that they keep up with the teams that do have power offenses. Wisconsin doesn't have a power offense, but what I'm saying is that they should fire Christ because a Christ-led Badgers team is never going to beat Ohio State. Ohio State is so far ahead of them, and the gap is just getting worse and worse every year. With Christ there, like the expectations for Wisconsin aren't spectacular. Let me just comment on this video game actually for a minute. Let me just comment on something more casual. I don't want to get too worked up here, which I know it doesn't sound like I'm worked up because my voice is like monotone or whatever. I just need to give myself the right to be more expressive and more animated. I need to understand myself to be an animated person, an animagus. I need to be an anime character. I need to get more into anime. That's what I'm talking about. I just need to get more into anime. I need to take the plunge. That's the direction I've headed in life. I'm like, I hear good things about it. People like it. I'm an anime girl now. I'm one of those, I'm, like one of those cartoon Japanese girls that that's my life. Sort of my thing. So you're gonna see elements of that incorporated in this podcast subtly over time. It'll be perplexing to you, but if you heard me talk about this, that it's going to happen, then you'll know. You'll know what's to come.
Going with the 6-iron here.
Like, I'm gonna be wearing Japanese flag shirts and stuff like that. I don't know. Is that racist? Is that racist to say Japanese is like that's a stereotype, like they love anime? Because not everybody in Japan likes it. Not everybody in Japan likes anime. I don't know if you knew that, but you heard it from me. Matt Connor, tell him Matt Connor told you that. If you ever share that anecdote, just know that it's from me and it's not from you. Don't steal that one from me. I don't even remember what I said. But here's the thing. I don't have a lot of anger for the Wisconsin program in this moment because I've seen the writing on the wall since they came out flat as shit against Penn State in the season opener in 2021. They looked like shit then. Paul Chryst needs to go mostly because he doesn't instill any confidence in his quarterback. He doesn't give a shit about the quarterback position. He's delusionally thought. I've watched it over the last 5 years. Chryst thinks delusionally that he can establish some sort of power run game that is unlike the run game of any other place. He thinks that like having a good running back can make up for bad blocking or something like that. So he stacks his offense with running backs that are good. He's like, we have three really good running backs. He doesn't give a shit about recruiting receivers. And any receiver that would consider going to Wisconsin realizes that they should not come within a mile of that place because Wisconsin doesn't respect the passing program. Wisconsin's quarterback that they use right now, Graham Mertz, is like the highest rated quarterback recruit that Wisconsin has ever gotten. And it just kind of goes to show, unfortunately, as we see the development of Mertz, which is non-existent, that it's actually a bad sign for you as a person. Like maybe you are in like to engage in self-sabotage or are in the business of collapsing in on yourself or something. If you're a highly rated quarterback and you choose to go to Wisconsin, that says more about the person. Like it might be a sign that they aren't a good quarterback in reality if they're choosing to go to Wisconsin because they're just asking for a lot of shit that that you wouldn't want to deal with other places like the Wisconsin University. I will tell you the secrets of the Wisconsin football program today if you stick around. Um, I'll let you know in depth what's going on at that place. Some of it has to do with the liberalness of the university, not a lot of it. I'll tell you now that the Wisconsin University is a very liberal place. I would say them and Michigan are the two most liberal in the entire Big Ten, maybe Northwestern. Well, Northwestern you'd have to throw up there because of their emphasis on liberal arts. Like, I'm talking about smarter universities that have placed more standards on academics. Like, Michigan is like that. Wisconsin is definitely like that. Northwestern goes even further to the point that the Northwestern football program has to take a back seat to academics and liberal arts because Northwestern will always identify itself to be a college for smart people before they're like a football school or anything like that. So Northwestern is perpetually fucked because of the way that their university views academics. And I bring them up to explain to you that academic an emphasis on academics or liberal arts in a university and city that's more liberal does have an effect on the football team at some point. Um, like at some point, they are detracting from the football team enough that the football team has to bow out to the university, which is what happens with Northwestern. But that happens a little bit at Wisconsin, where it's like they are forced to not take the football program as seriously, so they're more wary of doing something like buying a new offensive coordinator, getting getting a professional in there that is not a Wisconsin guy or something. Like the university is going to discourage them from something like that because they want to maintain that they don't take the football program so seriously that they're going to allow them to bring in some new guy. Um, like the university isn't always in the business of catering to the whims of the football program. Like, oh yeah, we're going to let you shell out cash to bring in a pro, like a new offense or something. So academics do deter the football team from being all that it can be. Is that the reason that they lose 34-10 to Illinois? No, that's because of Paul Chryst. Paul Chryst is the reason that that happens. See what we got here. Give me that bird. Give me that bird. Yes, sir. I am I'm just Oh, that was for par. Give me that par that I thought was a bird. Yes. I still have a two-shot lead through 12 holes here. as I try to win the fourth event of 6 on the Corn Ferry Tour in my effort to be able to buy the newest PGA Tour game, which comes out in October later this month, and an effort to no longer be a Corn Ferry, because that's what I am right now. Not that you want to say that it's bad to be a Corn Ferry. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not a homophobe. But Corn Ferry is different from gay. I'm just using play on words to my advantage at this time. So what you call it, play on words? Like a pun? Like, fairy isn't really a pun for gay. So maybe I shouldn't say that either. But, yeah, I don't know how I'll subtly incorporate elements of anime into this broadcast, but you'll see it. Because I heard that that's trendy, so I don't want to fall behind. That would be really scary. Be scary if I fell behind. I'm just being facetious, but the liberalness of Wisconsin plays a factor, so they're not going to be able to shell out whatever cash they want, and they don't have tons of money pouring in for like recruiting. Like, they're not Ohio State, and kind of what I'm saying is just that the relationship between the football program and the academic and the liberal arts side of a university is kind of like a marriage. And I'm not trying to sound like Colin Coward, who always talks about marriages, but hopefully this marriage example is more unique than his, or differentiates itself from what he talked about with marriage. But he's actually married, so he would know. But I'm not married, so I have an outside perspective that's also useful. Believe you me, my perspective is useful and necessary, and I will be listened to, and I am not expendable, and that's my mission statement. That's what this podcast is, basically. It's like, by the way, I'm not expendable, so, and you do need this information, so, and you will hear it, so, and it will be heard, but, and then when you do hear it, then you'll pass it along because it's vital, the same way that I am. Me, and my organs and my message are all vital and will be recognized as such no matter what. That's the preamble to the Constitution. A lot of people don't know that, but I recited it word for word just now, just today. This is one of my many skills, is creating new preambles to the Constitution. But I'm saying that it's like a marriage between the university and the football program. The football program is like the dumb man that brings in money for the university, and the liberal arts program, I mean the academic side of the university, has the football program on a lead. Bear that title. All right, headset back on. And basically, what I'm saying is that if you look at something like Ohio State, it's one of those marriages where the man doesn't like anything that the wife says. But like Wisconsin's football program, I mean, Wisconsin University, like, Paul Chryst is just pussy whipped by the university a lot more so than something like Ohio State. At Ohio State, Ryan Day makes the university his bitch. Like, the university will never have anything to say about Ohio State's football program because of the seriousness placed on Ohio State and the expectations there. It will never be like, oh, the liberal arts of the university are more important. That's never anything you have to worry about. And I just use the term liberal arts to say academics, but also the liberal nature of things that can permeate a football program and start to ruin it. And so I'm talking about that. That's not really, I don't really think that's a reason Wisconsin is bad. It's just a factor to consider. But like, um, it's something to consider, but Paul Chris is just a piece of trash. They got 2 rushing yards today against Illinois. And what makes it even worse for Wisconsin is that the a coach that Wisconsin used to have, Brett Bielema, who left Wisconsin because he didn't like the way he was compensated at the university and he felt limited there, is kind of an ugly breakup between Wisconsin and one of their coaches. But this coach is now coaching the team that just demolished Wisconsin today, 34-10. Bielema is coaching Wisconsin, so that makes it even worse. It's the death of modern day Wisconsin football. If anybody is treating it honestly, that's what I'm on here to talk about and to express. It's a devastating loss, and you have to. It's just that there's a problem with the Wisconsin fan base where they're willing to tolerate nonsense out of this Paul Chryst just because he's a Wisconsin guy. Oh, my batteries are low. My controller batteries are low, so that means my controller is about to die. Oh my god. I don't know what to do. Once my controller dies, I can't plug it in right now because my Twitch stream camera is plugged into my Xbox. I mean, I knew that this day was coming. I knew that it was. It's just that this is the most unprofessional podcast in the world, in addition to the #1 podcast and Twitch stream in the world. And so, I don't know, maybe I'll just make sure I get through these 9 holes really quickly and then talk about something else. Okay, so my thing is going to die. That's the only thing I can do. I got 4 holes left. Here we go. We're going to go power through these 4 holes, which is what you've been waiting for, probably watching it anyway. I'm 2 shots ahead and for the tournament in order to win. I got 4 holes left, and my controller batteries are about to die. The stakes have never been higher. And so if I can get through this without the controller batteries dying, then I win, among other things. Then I'm a winner. So I'll just talk about this and then in a minute talk more about something else, about the Wisconsin whatever. But right now I need to focus on finishing this. I got 63 yards out of the rough. That means I can just take a swing, even though this is the heaviest rough ever. I landed in the middle of a forest, but somehow the game is like, I mean, not a forest, but a dense patch of tall grass and shrubs. And the game is like, yeah, just hit it out of there. And I hit it out of there and I landed on the green. It's actually one of the most miraculous shots, if it really happened in golf, that you would ever see. That's what video games are for, creating miracles you could never have in real life. I'm a gamer. Emphasis on the gay, right? I'm a queer. Just kidding, I'm making jokes at my expense. But you know, I do sometimes. My S's aren't the greatest in the world. It almost sounds like one of those accents that gay people do, you know. My S's, my S's are a little gay, right? I've never had very good S's. I never have. I've always, I mean, when I first started hearing myself on camera for the first time, I was surprised at how unkempt my S's were. My S's are all over the place because I didn't do the S the way that you're supposed to, the way everybody else learned it or something. I got one of those uncontrolled S's, and it's burdened me for years. So, like, when I get to heaven, I can finally rid myself of the burdens of the way of my sins and struggles and the way I say S's. You know, like that song with Dolly Parton and Brad Paisley. If if those are the two singing it, and if they weren't just covering some song that's happened before. I don't know if it's their song. I think that that's who it was. Oh, when I get where I'm going, there'll be only happy tears. That's what I'm talking about. I'll shed the sins and struggles that I've had with me for years, yeah. Oh, baby, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Alright, this one's for par. I need to can this. Need to can this one right here. I need to can it. Need to can this baby right here. Need to smoke this one right in. Canned it. Canned it right on the right edge. You can't buy precision like that. I mean, it'd be more precise if it was dead center. Oh, some jackass tied me. Some jackass bot fake named to appear as a Korn Ferry Tour player named George McDormand is now tied with my ass, threatening my status as winner, as Korn Ferry Tour winner, Korn Ferry Tour champion. And let me tell you this, I bought a red champion hoodie. And it arrived in the mail today. Oh, wow, I'm losing it. I'm starting to fail like this was a real tournament. This is what would happen in real life, too. I'm about to win a Korn Ferry Tour event, and that's going to be too much for me. Okay, no, skip this. I've hit that shot so badly that they gave me an instructional of how to hit shots better. Good golly, Miss Molly. No, somehow I've lost the ability to shoot it normally. Oh boy, but I still have a birdie opportunity. I bounce back. Like, I need to remind myself, hey, this is just a career mode video game of a Korn Ferry Tour event. You really don't need to let the pressure of it get to you. Like, you'd think that the pressure of that would not be big enough that it would cause problems. But I'm a jackass, so I'm like, let's see if it hurts me. Let's see if we can make this a problem. But yet, even though I say all of that, I'm just faking because I birdie the 17th hole. Suck it, haters. Suck it. And again, I say suck it. And George McDormand's dumbass bogeyed the 18th. So I'm in the driver's seat. I have a two-shot lead. I have a two-shotarino leader. Heading into the 18th hole. The 18th hole is a 418-yard par 4, not insurmountable. I can deal with this. And we have a perfect aim on the drive. This one should end up in the fairway. Should end up in the fairway. Should be... Oh, wow. Holy fucking... cripes. Holy fucking cripes. It somehow rolled right into the very heavy downslope of a nearby fairway bunker that's just sitting in the middle of the fairway to try to ruin the hopes and dreams of anybody who hits a perfect shot as they're trying to become champion on the 18th hole. I mean, obviously it wasn't a perfect shot. We can see that now. Obviously I was misguided in thinking that it was really good. But you know what? I recover with a very good approach shot, and I have a chance for birdie. It looks like this tournament is in my hands, and the name on everybody's lips will be Barge Mistletoe in the Korn Ferry universe. Well, in the Korn Ferry universe, it works a little bit differently. People down there can't stop talking about Barge Mistletoe. And
absolutely, what a performance all week long. Hung tough. Love watching that guy play.
Well, that's worth reviewing. Let's roll the videotape.
All right, we're back, and I do win the tournament, and so I will, in just 39 minutes it took me to win that, and so I'll just talk the rest of the time about Wisconsin football and some of its problems. I just wanted to say that the Wisconsin fan base has way too high a tolerance for this guy, for Paul Chryst, for the Wisconsin program. They're just letting this guy drive the program into the ground, but it's like, I was okay with them losing to Ohio State by a lot, because I thought that Wisconsin is just going to do what they do every other year under Chryst, which isn't the worst thing in the world. They are going to go 8-4 or something, and then end up number 18 in the RPI, which happens for the Badgers even in years where everybody is criticizing them. Like people are quick to overlook the steadiness of the program. I would say personally that get rid of Christ even if the program is going to continue to be steady. It's one thing to have a program that's steady year after year in basketball, which is okay because they let 64 teams into the final tournament. You can't do that in football where the playoff is only 4 teams and you have to win basically every game. Um, it does not pay to go 8-4. In some senses, it does, but like it's just that I thought that's probably going to happen. That's what happened last year. It looked like everything was going to shit last year, but they ended up 8-4 and like number 18 in the RPI, which is good because that there's like 140 teams in Division One football. Being 18th is you're doing better than a lot of people. That's not the worst thing in the world, but I would say personally, I think they should get rid of Chris because the Paul Chryst Badgers will never beat Ohio State. They're not even concerned with it. They're not even taking any steps to figure out what they can do. Part of the problem is that they don't play Ohio State every year. They're not like rivals of Ohio State like Michigan is. Michigan was rivals with Ohio State, and the pressure of that caused them to improve quite a bit as a program because of direct contact with the competitive edge that Ohio State has received over the last decade, but really over the program's entire history. Because Michigan is in direct contact with them and they're their rivals, have to play them every year, and the media shits on Michigan like crazy whenever they lose to Ohio State. This this made it so that Jim Harbaugh had to go out and buy a new offensive coordinator and like make efforts to totally revamp their system rather than continue to rely on running the football, which is what Harbaugh wanted to do. Harbaugh, like Chryst, is one of these coaches that um, he loves the running game. He's dead set on the running game. Like he loves watching a successful running game and gears his program towards making the running game successful. Like that's what he likes about football. Harbaugh is somebody who loves the running game, and he really had to take a lot of steps back because the media shit on him for getting obliterated by Ohio State every single year. He went out, Michigan went out and bought a new offensive coordinator, just some college football aficionado guy who was doing shit at Alabama. And Michigan's like, we're going to buy you. Like, Harbaugh didn't even talk to the guy. He didn't even give a shit. He's like, this guy's a pro. He's a ringer. We'll bring him in. It'll be great. That was their plan. They're like, we're not going to do things the Michigan way forever. We're going to bring in some foreign guy. And the question is Wisconsin willing to do that? It's just that Wisconsin doesn't have the pressure of needing to beat Ohio State. The media doesn't kill them for doing that because they don't have the expectations. That's just what's problematic about the program in the long run. Like a program over 40 years, why Wisconsin doesn't often beat Ohio State is because the expectations aren't there for them to beat them. The media isn't killing them to beat them. Nobody cares if they don't. Like that's just a culture problem where culturally the Wisconsin fans aren't like, we need to beat Ohio State. They're okay with a team that's 8-4 and ends 18th in the RPI. But I would argue that it is pretty evident that this Wisconsin team is going to be worse than a team that perennially finishes in the top 15 in the RPI. They are getting worse and worse than that, but it's really just the confidence level of Wisconsin players on the field as displayed, as we've seen it over the last couple of years, is putrid. It's awful. I'd say that there's not a single other team in Division One that drops the ball as much as Wisconsin needlessly, is like as careless with the ball as Wisconsin that I've seen. Wisconsin players are fumbling at strange times, fumbling around the goal line a lot, dropping kickoffs a lot, dropping passes a lot, not just because their receivers are bad, but because which they don't recruit receivers at all. That always fucks the quarterback. Um, that's what's really difficult a bit about being a Wisconsin quarterback is that they basically never have receivers because they don't pour a lot of resources into the passing game because Wisconsin's like, our identity is the running game. But Christ has taken that to this level that's so extreme that he's basically defining the program to an image, or he's making the program a caricature of itself, where he's like, we're so known for running to the rest of the nation. He thinks that he's like making it so that they actually look that way too, because the Barry Alvarez Wisconsin teams, they're known for running the ball. That's how they make their money. That's how they differentiate themselves from other teams, is that Wisconsin wins and they win running the ball. Barry Alvarez found a way to do that, but he found a way to do that because they weren't like, their mission wasn't, we're going to run the ball. We're going to go out and pound the ball down their throats. Barry Alvarez's teams mix in the pass as if they could pass every down. And that's the way that Wisconsin used to be, is that even though the media criticized them for like, oh, it's Wisconsin, they're going to run the ball. It never really was like that in actuality. They actually passed on first down, second down, or third down whenever they wanted. It's just that at the end of the game, before your very eyes and before you even knew it, Wisconsin had run majority running plays and they had won the game, or in some cases run up the score. That's because they weren't so pinned down to the identity of running. It was never like expected, oh, we're going to run. But Paul Chryst has a perspective of the Badgers that the media and the surrounding nation has of them, where he's like, we're going to run as much times as the media thinks we are. Like he must be a paranoid fellow of sorts, where he gets too mixed up in the perceptions of the football team rather than that he's focusing on the football team. And overall, it's just very obvious we need to fire the guy. He's yeah, maybe they go 8-4 this year again and finish. It's possible they go 8-4 and then finish 15th or 18th in the RPI. It's just that it's really ugly to watch this team play, and anytime it's a close game, they start panicking because Chryst must be a panicker. It's just that the players look fearful on the field. They don't look confident. Graham Mertz, their quarterback, has looked really inconfident his entire career, where he was one of the top, he was one of the top 300 recruits in the nation coming out of high school. If you get a top 300 recruit, that's exactly what you're trying to do. A top 300 recruit, like that's the name. That's a big named player that you just signed. That's a big deal. And that Graham Mertz was in the top 150 of all prospects. And it would appear that the choice to go to Wisconsin has destroyed his career. And so the example of Graham Mertz is a calling card, the opposite of a calling card for any quarterback coming out of high school who might be considering Wisconsin. Should look at this situation and realize that they should come nowhere near this. I'm telling you now as a Wisconsin fan, just as a friend to you, any prospective high school quarterbacks, do not go to Wisconsin. Don't be an idiot. Even if you're a quarterback at Wisconsin now and you think you have a future, transfer out of there, because Wisconsin's scheming offensively is so shitty that you probably won't even have a chance. And I think that that's what happens with Graham Mertz. I'm just the kind of person who, a lot of Wisconsin fans blame Mertz for it. I blame Chryst 100% of the way, because I don't think they care about the passing game. You already know that that's the case, because they don't care. They don't try to recruit receivers. No, I'll remediate the situation. I don't know if that's what you would actually say, instead of using remedy as a verb, even though people use remedy as a verb all the time. Um, but Chryst doesn't recruit receivers. That's how you already know to not go there as a quarterback. But they're scheming. Also, Wisconsin, like, they have Graham Mertz, who looks shaky, but then they don't take any steps to help him out. They don't let him throw on first and second down very much. at least like before this year, they like to run on first and second down, and then they end up in a 3rd and 6 inevitably. And then that's the most difficult situation for a shaky passer because the secondary and the defense already know that a pass is coming. So like over and over again, I'm watching Paul Chryst as a coach allow Graham Mertz to be thrust into the worst situations. He's not trying to tilt it in his advantage at all. I would argue that he doesn't give a fuck about the quarterback position, doesn't give a fuck about Graham Mertz's development. But among other things, and this point is would be harder to argue, but the Wisconsin fan base are a little bit pussies when it comes to the referees. I would say I think that they don't argue with the referees enough, but not to make it so much about the Wisconsin fan base, but I do look at the Wisconsin stadium, the Wisconsin fans that show up to a football game today in 2022. Their stadium full of fans. They aren't doing a shit fucking thing to get on the referees. I don't know what that is about. There seems to be this turn in the last couple of years, where everybody in the sporting world is like, we're not going to criticize the refs. They're doing the best they can. It's juvenile to criticize them. We're just going to allow them to do whatever they want. And I mean, I'm not completely opposed to it, but it's kind of like to each his own. It's really more like at the end, you have to deal with the refs at an individual level now. There isn't on a public level. It's harder and harder to criticize the referees, who are an important and vital part of the game. But I am watching this Wisconsin team game after game not challenge the referees at all, and over the years not challenge them very much. And they are a rare program, I would say, that is able to lose a game because of the refs, because they let the refs bully them. And part of it has to do with the Wisconsin fan base and a state of people that is too traditionalist and adheres too much to policy. And one person I really like in the world, just in the world, but in the comedy world, is Tony Hinchcliffe. And he's like I really like Tony Hinchcliffe's opinion for some reason. I couldn't express to you why his opinion matters for what I'm about to say, but basically, Tony Hinchcliffe has a podcast called Kill Tony, and it's a live podcast. He's done more than 500 episodes of it, and he usually just does it at the same bar. They used to be centered in LA, but now he lives in Austin. He moved to Austin after Rogan did, because Hinchcliffe and Rogan are really good friends. But he has this podcast called Kill Tony, and he hosts it at a bar in Austin every week. But there was a period where they did Kill Tony on the road, and they went and did this podcast in a bunch of different cities. And they did 3 stops in Wisconsin at Appleton, Milwaukee, and Madison. And then Hinchcliffe was talking about, and this is interesting to me because I'm from Wisconsin. Hinchcliffe was talking about how, like, after the fact, they were asking him, like in an interview, not a really professional interview, this is kind of like offhand. He was talking about what jumped out to him about Wisconsin, and him and Brian Redban, who is his producer. Brian Redban is the original producer of the Joe Rogan Experience. They call him the Podfather because he's like a creator of famous podcasts, shit like that. He is an originator, producer podcast that's becoming more and more famous. But they were both like, what jumped out to them about Wisconsin is that it seemed like a police state to them. And I had never heard that, being somebody from Wisconsin. But they were commenting like, the people in Wisconsin don't even realize it, that the cops tell them what to do here more in Wisconsin than they do in other states. And the people don't even kind of like docile, or they just go along with it. And I'd say that lines up with that Wisconsin is kind of traditionalist, and they live in the past a little bit statewide. like Wisconsin is kind of like a giant gang. Everybody in Wisconsin is a little bit like a gang. And I say that because Wisconsin is one of these states that the people from the state mention the name of the state a lot. And Ohio is like that, and Texas is like that. Like people in Ohio, Ohio is maybe more like that from Wisconsin, but Wisconsin does it. It's just that people in Ohio mention the state a lot and wear the state on their clothes a lot. It's just that they talk about the state of Ohio with positivity and reverence and fondness, where they're like, "Oh, Ohio is like this. It's crazy that everybody in Ohio is like this," but they just mention Ohio a lot. It's narcissistic. Uh, the difference in this area between Wisconsin and Ohio is that people from Wisconsin mention Wisconsin a lot, where they're like, "Ah, that's Wisconsin for you." Where, yeah, I'm from Wisconsin. They mention it a lot. Just look at Chris Farley. Chris Farley is the only famous comedian, essentially, to ever come out of Wisconsin. And in basically every interview he ever gave on Conan and David Letterman, he brought up that he was from Wisconsin. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's just that Wisconsin, they always talk about Wisconsin like it's this negative thing for some reason. Like that's the gist. But it's similar thing to saying that you're goofy as a person because I guess you're just a cheesehead at the end of the day. It's the same thing as being willing to be identified just to cheesehead or cheese as a state is like an over willingness to make fun of yourself. But it's just that if you look at some of the facts, Wisconsin at a national level, they have police that are more infamous than police of other states, more noteworthily infamous, like the Making a Murderer series that basically was a diatribe against police of Southeast Wisconsin, um, where they criticized the police for setting up Stephen Avery to look like a criminal and look like a murderer. Um, Making a Murderer was a phenomenon when it came out, and it centered around Wisconsin police being evil. It was a phenomenon for the entire nation. And then the shooting in Kenosha was another one where you see that it has legs, the story of police being nefarious in Wisconsin. Like I would argue that Wisconsin police are an easier target for something like that. I don't really know why that is. Um, I'd say that the Making a Murderer documentary, it might, as far as I know, is entirely bullshit with their portrayal of the police because, well, I mean, I never really watched it. I'm still under the impression that Stephen Avery is a murderer and that it didn't even very much look like it was. And I think the Making a Murderer was just propaganda to say some other bullshit. And so I don't really believe the ethics of the documentary, but I do believe that there is something to be said about, for some reason, on a national level, we're able to make a story out of Wisconsin police, or there's something interesting about that story to the rest of the nation, where the rest of the nation wants to fill in the blanks or wants to fill in the gaps, or they want to say that police in Wisconsin must be shitty for whatever reason. That is a story the rest of the nation is a narrative the nation is willing to go along with. I don't couldn't explain the details of why that is. Um, but I would say that there's an over adherence to policy that comes through in the way that the Wisconsin fan base reacts to referees, for example. Like I've seen that my entire life, where Wisconsin football fans don't take the program as seriously as they take the Packers, and so they are willing to be more docile to the refs. Because I'm smart. Headset assigned. Um, anyway, but yeah, I think that the people in Wisconsin, I see it at some level that they are willing to police each other to say that the referees are good people. But worse than that, I'm saying there's like an over adherence to policy that's going on in Wisconsin where I would say that checks out. Not that I really know for sure. Um, the town in rural Wisconsin that I'm most familiar with, they were oversaturated with cops 24/7. It was like a known thing in the community, Union Grove, Wisconsin, that there's like a cop everywhere for it being such a tiny town. It's possible that that's just the way it works um, across the entire state, but Tony Hinchcliffe had that opinion because they were at a bar, and then the bar owner came up to them and they were like, "Hey, we don't want any trouble from you," because they were outsiders. Like this is the 70s or the they're like not trustful of outsiders. Like Wisconsin is kind of stuck in the past a little, but the bar owner went up to them and was like, "We don't want any trouble with you. There's a cop sitting right out in the parking lot." And I guess that Tony Hinchcliffe hadn't ever experienced anything like that, but I just happen to really trust his opinion on it. And I would say that it's possible that we treat referees too kindly too, but not that I could explain why that is, but it's obvious that the referees push them around a lot, or can push them around when they want. A big part of the problem is Paul Christ. Like, I'm not going to blame the referees for them losing. Paul Chris is the problem because he doesn't get on the referees. Like, this is why Bo Ryan is a legend and why we love him so much as Wisconsin fans. Like, he really is the picture that you should look to. We he got on the referees all the time. He was pissed at them. He embodied the pissedness of Wisconsin fans towards referees, probably in a way. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how Wisconsin coaching of the past looked, but Bo Ryan always went after the refs, and he's a legend. And Paul Christ has no rapport with the referees. He doesn't even know how to talk to them. He's just a bad communicator at every level. Um, he's a bad communicator to the players. It would appear. I don't know how he could be. He's probably like pretty distant from them and doesn't communicate a lot with them. You don't see him communicate a lot ever, but he, especially not with the refs, he has no rapport with them. The refs probably don't respect him and they're more willing to call shit against him. Like the refs probably don't have a good relationship with Chris just because he probably doesn't even talk to them that much, or he probably doesn't find it necessary. He's negligent about that because he doesn't think it's part of the game or something, where he's just negligent about so many aspects of it that you would be crazy to think that he should stay as head coach of the team. He doesn't give a fuck. He's negligent about the kicking game. The game is called football. Talking about your feet. It's an important aspect of the game. Kicking, your kicking game, kicking field goals. That's important because it's always like a field goal kicker that ends up as the greatest point scorer in NFL history is like field goal kickers because they're consistently putting in 3 points, no matter what, like over receivers or running backs that end up in the end zone a lot and get 6 points for it. Consistently, it's like kickers that are the leading scorers over a career. For football, the game, it's not coincidence this game is called football. Chris seems to think special teams isn't a part of it, and he's devoted no resources to getting a good kicker when it's like that's the easiest fix. That's got to be the first thing you can do. And we already know as fans of this team that Chris isn't even smart enough to make that change, or that's never going to reach him. Part of the problem is just a Wisconsin fan base that refuses to articulate the need for a kicking game, even though for 20 years in a row we've watched them roll out one of the shittiest kicking games in all of Division One. And I say that it's not the shittiest. Sometimes they get lucky and have a guy that makes them. It's just that my problem is that they don't care about it. We're like, maybe we'll get lucky and get a good kicker. They don't care about that. They don't care about punting, where punting can really give your team an advantage if you have a great punter. They don't care about that. The return game, the punting game, whatever bullshit artist that Chris trots out to return punts is always like a fourth string wide receiver because he doesn't give a shit about that, but he's just negligent. He's negligent in so many areas like this: punt returning, kick returning, kicking field goals. So it's like you can always expect us to have a shaky field goal kicker no matter what. It's like you can bet on it just as much as you can bet on them to lose to Ohio State. It's like under Chris, we're never gonna have a good kicker, and we're never gonna beat Ohio State for these and other reasons. We need to get rid of him. He has no rapport with the refs. The refs, I've watched them over the years. The refs push us around, and it's a really obnoxious part of it, but it's really like I don't need to argue any of this for you. They had as many rushing yards as interceptions thrown today for a team that has done everything in its power to identify itself to having a good running game. They got 2 rushing yards against what normally is a shitty team. It's a complete embarrassment. And if we go forward with Christ, we're saying that it's okay to let's keep this guy that, I mean, that's just shame on the family name. That's shame on our ancestors. 2 rushing yards against Illinois, that's a kill shot, if anything. If you're having anywhere near an honest conversation about this matter, that's a kill shot for Paul Chryst. Get him the fuck out of there. I've been calling for him to get out of here since over a year ago on this very podcast. Nothing's changed for me. I mean, it has changed a little. It's not like I have gained confidence and lost it a number of times, so probably over this past year, but get rid of the guy, let's be honest. Alrighty. I hope you like football, because that's what this podcast was. That's what this episode was about. Talk to you all later. More episodes to future. Goodbye. Ah. How do I end the Twitch stream? I wonder if I pull the thing out, if it'll just stop. I don't know what to do in this situation. That's what she said. Oh, looks like I've been given a moment of reprieve.